Hello and welcome to our podcast Life in Law, hosted by Acorn Recruitment in connection with the Swansea JOD. I'm Michael Ive, Legal Recruitment Specialist. With us today we have the Director and Head of Recoveries and Professional Liability at JCP Solicitors, Sophie Thomas. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Currently working from home, enjoying this terrible weather we're having.
Good stuff. So yeah, firstly I just wanted to cover a bit about yourself, your journey, kind of how you went from sort of LLB student to head of a team, really.
Okay, that's fine. So I studied LLB law at Cardiff University. I applied to do law, having studied it at A level at Simon College in Swansea and having enjoyed my studies. It wasn't necessarily something that I dreamed of doing from a young girl, but it's a path I've followed and I ended up where I am today. So I studied LLB in Cardiff from 2003 to 2006. During the course of my degree, I undertook various work experience placements at different law firms and enjoyed the time that I spent there and realised that I wanted to become a solicitor. I'd also spent some time at undertaking some mini pupilages with barristers' chambers, and while they helped me to realise I wanted a career in law, I knew that the barrister route wasn't going to be something that was for me. So then I decided I wanted to study the LPC, so I went straight through and did the LPC at Swansea University from 2006 to 2007. I'm from Llanelli originally, so I'd moved up to Cardiff to do my degree and decided I wanted to move back west to live at home and study the LPC. I hadn't had a training contract before I started the LPC. I'd been for one or two interviews which hadn't been successful, but I thought I wanted just to go straight through and carry on my studies. Again, during LPC, I undertook some work experience, and then in the Easter of my LPC year, JCP Solicitors said that they were looking for a trainee solicitor to start in the September. I applied, was interviewed, and at that point, part of the interview and selection process was to go there for a week-long work experience placement. So I spent a week there during the Easter holidays, where I shadowed various members of staff and had to complete different tasks during the course of the week. So I'd have one task where I had to write a will, do some research on PI damages, things like that. Then submitted the coursework at the end of the week, and a few weeks later I was told I'd been successful in getting the training contract. So I was really fortunate. I started the LPC not having a training contract, and by the Easter then I had one to start immediately once I finished my studies at Swansea. So I started my training contract with JCP September 2007. Did 2 years there. I spent a year in the commercial litigation team, which is now the recoveries and professional liability team that I am the head of. And I also undertook 2 other seats in property and wills and probate. I knew during the course of my training contract that I wanted to work in litigation, and was keen to have a NQ job undertaking litigation work. But when it came to qualifying in 2009, it was immediately after we'd had the recession, and unfortunately there weren't any jobs at JCP in the area I wanted to specialise in. So I finished my training contract in 2009. I spent a short 3 months at a licensed conveyancers, working as a paralegal once I qualified, just so I could stay in the law and keep working. So while I'd qualified as a solicitor at that point, I was undertaking a paralegal role without a practicing certificate, which was fine. I could see that there was room for progression there, and I was just concerned about keeping my foot in the water, if that makes sense. And then by I'd spoken to recruitment consultants before I'd qualified and had my CVs out with various ones, and then, to cut a long story short, I was interviewed at Eversheds in Cardiff and got a job in their title rectification and professional negligence team, which I started in February 2010. So I started I got the job in Eversheds, which I started in February 2010. I spent 18 months there, commuting back and forth from Llanelli, which at the time was fine because I was living with my parents and being dropped off at the train station. I'd have my tea on the table when I got home. But it was a very long day. I was out of the house for 12 hours, 3-hour round trip on Arriva Trains Wales isn't ideal. So I spent 18 months there, and then a job came back up at JCP in the team I wanted to work in. So I applied for that and was successful, and have been back at JCP then since May 2011. So I went back into the team that I really enjoyed during my training contract as an associate solicitor, and have stayed in that team ever since and have worked my way up. I was made a director in April 2017, and then took on in April 2019. I've taken over the role of head of team, so head of the recoveries and professional liabilities team. Also, I think it was in 2017 or 2018, I was made the firm's training principal. So I look after the 10 trainees that we have, ensure that they're receiving proper training, and deal with any queries or concerns that they may have during the course of their training contract. So I've got 2 hats really. I've got my fee earner hat and head of team hat, where I do my, I've got my head of, I've lost my train of thought now. So I wear 2 hats, my fee earner hat as head of the recoveries and professional liability team, and then I also have my training principal hat as well. So it's quite a well-rounded role, which I really enjoy.
Okay, nice, and that's a good overview. So going back to the start almost, I know you said you secured lots of work experience and mini pupillage. By doing that early on, did that sort of give you a good idea of where you wanted to go in your career and like why you wanted to go into litigation? Did that help you with your sort of direction?
Yes, with the career, certainly, not necessarily the choice of litigation. When I speak to students, when we go to careers fairs and we have our drop-in sessions at the, well, we used to have the drop-in sessions at the office pre-COVID-19. I always, the number 1 tip, what I always say is to students, is to get as much work experience as possible, and to get it all as early on as you can as well. It's great to have work experience on your CV. It's a really good talking point when you're going for job interviews. You can draw on your experiences and tell interviewers about what you've been doing, what tasks you've undertaken, etc. But it's also important for you as a person to get an experience of what you want to do. We're in this job for a long time, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, for the best part of 40 years now. So you have to make sure that you enjoy what you're doing, and it's something that you want to do, because you're putting a lot of effort into your degree, your LPC, your training contract. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of money as well. So you need to make sure you know what you want to do, and it's the right thing for you. And getting work experience in different types of law firms as well is really important. I remember somebody telling me when I was in uni that you should go to a high street firm, it's a smaller firm with 3 or 4 directors. Try and go to a large national or international firm if possible, and then maybe try something medium-sized as well. So that'll give you an idea, not just of the type of law, but the type of firm you want to work in as well, because they're all very different. It'll help you decide what you want to do and help you for your interview questions, and it'll also bolster your CV for when people are looking at your CVs during the selection process. They'll be able to see a dedication from you to law and a career in law as well.
How would you recommend that people secure sort of work experience?
Ask. Some, you know, I know I make it sound simple, and I know a lot of students we speak to in careers fairs, etc., say they're desperately trying to get work experience, and some struggle. But I think what my top tips are: go and speak to the careers teams at your universities, because a lot of them arrange placements direct with HR departments. But what I did is I contacted the HR people at the firms I wanted to work in. So do your research, have a look on the firm's website, see who their HR manager is, and drop them an email or connect with them on LinkedIn and send them a message on there. What I would do as well is, rather than just sending a generic email saying, can I please have work experience, maybe say why you want to have work experience with the firm, and just a little bit of research on the firm to see what you can find out about them, and mention that, just so that we can see that you are interested in the firm and you want to come to us. And then it'll also make you stand out from the crowd as well. The other advice I would say is just to keep an eye out on different firms' social media, because we attend careers fairs. So we were in Cardiff University in the autumn, met with students there, and we took lists of students interested in work experience, and they were all then contacted, and where we could accommodate, we took them on to do work experience in our different offices. And also maybe JLD as well, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later on. That'll always be a good opportunity to meet other people in different firms, and ask people. If you don't ask, you don't get. And be persistent. You know, there's nothing worse than sending out, I don't know, 20 or 30 letters to people or emails and not getting a reply, or getting lots of rejections. But I think persistence is key as well.
Great. And regarding your training contract with JCP, so you said you had to make an application. Was that a letter you had to do? Did you have to interview as well, or was it just that 1 week trial you had?
Yeah, so it was a relatively straightforward process. So I think I just sent a covering letter on my CV. I was then called for interview. I think it must have been an hour-long interview, if that, with the training principal and head of HR at the time. They asked me, can't remember exactly what they asked me because it was a long time ago now, but I remember them asking me some general questions and then some technical questions based on what I'd been studying at the time. And that was that. I then was called back to do the sort of second round. So there was 3 of us. We were all in the same class in university. The 3 of us got called back, and we all did a week's work experience placement. It was a very much a typical work experience, but I suppose they must have spent the week watching us, and they'd also given us those tasks to undertake, which I think they must have reviewed and marked then as part of the process. And it was that was the interview process for me. So I thought, even perhaps if I didn't get the job, at least I had work experience to add to for the next job I applied for. So it worked really well, and I was lucky.
You said that you had a couple applications before that were rejected. Do you think you kind of learned from that experience? Did you get any feedback from the ones before you got rejected on?
There's 2 I can think of. One was a firm in Port Talbot, and when I think back now, perhaps at the time it probably it wouldn't have been a training contract I would necessarily enjoy, because it was quite a significant childcare focus, which I hadn't studied any sort of family law or childcare law at the time, and having spoken to people who do work in that area now, I think I'm probably more suited to litigation. So I think the feedback I had from that is that they were looking for somebody with the childcare experience, the childcare knowledge, and the passion to undertake childcare law. And then another firm, I didn't feel the interview went that well. Some of the questions I didn't answer very well, and I suppose it was one of the first interviews I'd done, and it was a good experience for me, and it certainly helped me to prepare for future interviews. And yeah, so that was that.
Just in regards to the law that you cover, is it mainly been sort of recoveries and professional liability?
Since I've qualified, yeah, since I've qualified, I worked in Eversheds for a bit, which was a similar sort of area. Clients I work for mainly are institutional clients rather than individuals. I do have a couple of individual clients that I act for and advise, but the majority of my work tends to be for banks and building societies, and it's work I enjoy. So the recoveries work, and debt recovery, and commercial recoveries for banks, building societies and other companies and commercial entities across South Wales and nationally. And then the professional liability tends to be professional negligence claims against other solicitors or accountants, architects, surveyors, things like that.
So what would your kind of average day look like dealing with those kind of cases?
Good question. Average day would tend to be, so I'll maybe get into work or get to my desk in the kitchen as it currently stands, check my emails, maybe deal with a couple of quick emails I can fire back to clients or opponents. Then I'd probably sit down and do a larger task. Could be drafting a claim form, drafting witness evidence, long letters, calls with clients, speaking to barristers, advising clients on routes to recovery and the strategy and options available to them. Sometimes then perhaps I'll have a trainee who wants to have a chat with me about something, whether they've got an issue that they need to deal with, or they want some advice from me, or whether we need to review anything with them. Yeah, just tend to speak to the institutional clients on the phone a lot more, so that's quite nice to have client contact, and you get to know the people that you're dealing with really well, because some of them I've been dealing with now for the best part of 10 years. So they become your friends in a way, I suppose. You speak to them quite often, so it's quite nice to have the consistency to dealing with the same client day in, day out. Yeah, it's my typical day really. It can vary, so things come in that you have to deal with urgently, and no 2 days are really the same.
Excellent. And in your role as the trainee principal, where do you think that people struggle with their training contract?
Not necessarily. No, people struggle with training contracts. We've got a really good setup with us, and all our trainees, certainly in the last couple of years I've been dealing with it, have done really well. I suppose the way that it's set up with us, it means that we don't get the opportunity. They don't get the opportunity to start to struggle, because we review matters with them quite regularly, and I like to think that my door is always open, as well as other managers and supervisors and HR as well. So the way it works with them is that they do 4 seats on a 6-month rotation. Sometimes they'll double up and do 12 months in a team, but that usually is if they're really enjoying it and fitting in well and want to stay in the team. But then I'll have a review with each of the trainees every 3 months. So we'll do a mid-seat review, an end-of-seat review, and those reviews come around so quickly. By the time we fill out all of the reflection forms and meet and do any follow-up work, then they're coming round again. So I'd like, if there's any problems, then we tend to deal with them as part of the review. But more often than not, if anybody's got any issues or concerns with any of the trainees, they'll just deal with them face to face, head on, and get them nipped in the bud before they become a real issue. Yes, no, it's everything works quite well with them. I suppose the main concern that trainees tend to have is what's going to happen after the 2 years when they qualify. I hope that I'm able to guide them and provide them with advice as to what their options are, and if there's opportunities within the firm, then that's always really, really nice to see the trainees qualify into the firm and stay as NQs. But unfortunately, we can't always keep every trainee, so it's a case of then giving them advice, drawing on my own experience, which hopefully is comforting when they see that I was in the same boat as them a while ago. I didn't have a job when I qualified, was looking for jobs, and everything worked out okay, and I ended up coming back to JCP. So I like to think that experience that I had has helped me to give them advice and encouragement, to say that everything will work out. Just got to have perseverance and have confidence and keep your eye out for opportunities.
Okay, and you must see a lot of individuals applying for your training contracts. What mistakes do you commonly see?
Oh, right. I think with applications, it's just very obvious, even at first glance, how much effort somebody's put into an application. With us, we have just an application form with various questions on, and then sometimes an applicant will send their covering letter as well. My biggest bugbear is when the applicants have their spell check on, but the US version and S's suddenly come out as Z's. So if you say specialise with a Z, that's probably one nitpick of mine. Also any typos, spelling mistakes, things like that. I think if you can't get small points like that right, or read over your work before you send it off, and it's such an important piece of work that the applicant's going to be sending off as well, because it's their future career. If you can't take the opportunity to read through that and make sure that's right, then it just doesn't give off a very good first impression. I also think as well, you can tell when somebody just has a bank of standard paragraphs, that they look at the firm and say, oh, that firm does conveyancing, or that firm does whatever, let's stick the conveyancing paragraph in, or let's stick the childcare paragraph in. And it's very obvious as well the amount of research that somebody's done into your firm, and when they're just sending you generic letters that they're sending to everyone. I know, because I've been there, and I appreciate that it takes a lot of time to get everything, all these documents ready and these applications ready, but just taking that extra 10-15 minutes to look on the firm's website to see what you can talk about specifically rather than generally will stand you apart from everybody else, and it bumps you up the list relatively easily. And I suppose the other third thing I would say is just make sure that if you're filling out application forms, that you read the question and you answer the question. Whenever you start a new paragraph, go back to the question and think, now am I answering this? It's important, obviously, to make sure that you're doing that and don't go off on a tangent. I suppose those would be my main tips and my main issues when I'm looking at the numerous applications we get through.
Excellent. And what advice would you give to an individual about to start their training contract?
I've got top tips. Never try and always say yes to anything and everything. Get involved with as much as you can. So that's the only way you'll get to know people in the firm and know people in the legal community. For example, it's a bit different in the current circumstances, but I remember when I was a trainee, the marketing manager coming to me on a Friday afternoon saying, we've got a space at the Law Society dinner tonight, can you come, please? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, but you just say yes, and sometimes you won't be able to do it because you have other plans, but try and go to as many different things as you can. And I remember thinking how daunting it was going to be, that I was going to have to sit on this table with all the partners of the law firm. I didn't know many of them. I was going to have to get dressed up. I didn't have long to get ready, but it's just so invaluable to spend time with senior members of the firm and your colleagues, just to get to know them and for them to get to know you, because you get opportunities then. They lead on to other opportunities for you, and you never know who you're going to meet in these things. So always try and get involved and go to as many events, marketing opportunities as you can. It can be scary going to things on your own, but take a deep breath, go get it done, and it'll certainly be worth it. And obviously your confidence will grow then, as the more things you go to, the more confidence you get to be able to deal with things. My other advice is to, keep to-do lists. If somebody asks you to do a job, then make sure you know when they need it back by. And if you're struggling and think, I can't do all this, I've got too much work on, then speak to somebody and say, I'm struggling, can you please help me? Can you give me some guidance? Because we'll have all been there, and we'll know exactly how you're feeling, and we'll be able to help. And the other top tip is, if you make a mistake, then own up to it, go and speak to somebody. A problem shared is a problem halved. It's better to tell somebody, because none of us are perfect, we all make mistakes, and usually once you actually reflect on the mistake you've made, it's never as bad as you think it is, and mistakes can always be rectified one way or another and resolved. The other final, not so serious tip would be make a tea round. Everybody loves a cup of tea. Everybody likes to be offered a cup of tea. Not only shows that you're mucking in and you're a team player, but it also gives you an opportunity to chat to other staff. If they look busy, then don't stand in the doorway and talk to them for half an hour, but ask them how they are, show some sort of interest in them, and show that you're a team player. That would be my few top tips. I could probably have plenty more, but those are probably the main ones.
Excellent. Well, that's a great place to leave things this week. Thank you so much, Sophie, for coming on the podcast. It was fascinating to learn about Sophie's journey and the fact that she has almost a dual role of heading up the team and being the trainee principal. I think it was beneficial to learn about the importance of work experience, not just in the sense of padding out that CV, but in terms of learning the area of law you want to cover, and also the kind of firm you want to work in as well, as they are all different ultimately. And I think it was strong advice to make sure that you're doing your research on your covering letters when applying for work experience or training contracts, and making sure that it's not generic. It was also important to note that to make sure that your training contract applications are properly formatted and clearly show the research you've done, while also ensuring that it's targeted to what the application is asking of you and not being based off of templates that you have. And also the importance of saying yes, and making sure that you're mixing with the higher ups in the firm so they can put a face to a name. We'll be back soon with more content. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Life in Law, and take care, and thank you very much for listening.